Well, hello. These videos are meant to introduce you to HTML5 and CSS3, the basic structure and how to construct these things. We'll be using Dreamweaver, CC version of Dreamweaver. So, let's get started, shall we? First of all, the version of Dreamweaver I'm using is the 2014 version right here. So it has some enhancements over this version. I don't really understand why I have two of these, but Adobe will figure it out sooner or later and let me know, I hope. So back over here, what I would like to show you first is kind of a description of how HTML works. Now HTML, we're going to call that the construction part, or the structure part of the web page. It builds the structure, and then CSS will style it or give it the look that we want it to have. So for the structure part, it works like this. It's a markup language. So at the beginning, let me switch over to this cursor. Everything works in these sandwiches. So I built this sandwich right here. So this is a basic construction of a web page. I have HTML. This is the opening tag with these angle braces at the beginning, and this is the last one, or the closing tag. It's the same thing, only with this slash here. So this and this are the buns of the sandwich, right? Then and inside we have the head section, which is all the kind of stuff that you can't see but works in the background to help shape the page. The title of the page, the CSS instructions, meta tags, JavaScript, all that can reside up here in the head portion of the HTML tag. And that's kind of like the condiments of the sandwich. Now the body, or the meat, is everything that's visible. So everything that comes between these two tags, the opening body tag and the ending body tag, are the things that we can see and that are visible. Alright, that'll make more sense, maybe. So, before we get started, I want to go to my desktop here and make sure that I have a site ready to go. So I'm going to open up my sites folder, because I keep all my sites in the sites folder. I'm going to make a new folder in there, and we'll call this one Bob for now. And this will be where I keep all the assets for my site. Now with Dreamweaver, it's really important that you site manage and keep everything in the right place. If you start off the right way, it does a lot of work for you. Hierarchy, where the placement of all these things are, what they're named, all can be managed by Dreamweaver if you just start out the right way. So back here to Dreamweaver, and oh, here's what we're going to build. We're just going to build this right here, simple page. This outside gray box right here is going to be a div tag called a container. Now everything is a tag. This is a tag, header is a tag, nav is a tag, used for navigation, section, article, aside, and footer are all different names of tags. They'll have different names so that we can style them differently, and you'll see how we do that. But how to get these things on the page so that we can style them is what we're going to do next. So, over here, this is the welcome screen, and you're welcome to use the welcome screen. I usually don't. I usually go right up here to File and then New. Get a few more options that way, and it opens this dialog box. So right now we're going to leave this at blank, HTML page, none for the layout. Over here under doc type, we're going to choose HTML5, and then we're just going to say create. All right. What we're looking at is a pretty blank page right here. This is the design view. We also have code view, which lets us see the code, and HTML has already typed all this code in for us. And then we have split view, which lets us look at both of those at the same time. All right, so let's see what we have over here in the code. So far, we have the declaration of doc type at the top, which just says that this is an HTML5, so that when it hits somebody's web browser, it'll know how to translate it. Okay, and then we have this. Remember our buns here? So this is the HTML sandwich, the opening and closing tag. This new version of Dreamweaver CC illuminates those closing and opening and closing tags. All you have to do is click on one and it shows you where the other one is. This is very nice, especially when the code gets a little complicated to be able to find the opening and closing tags. Okay, so here's the head. This is the part that we don't see. So I have some meta instructions and we'll talk about that later. We have the title of the page, which is right here. And right now I'm going to change the title of the page. We're going to call this home, as it will end up being our home page. And if I hit return up here in the title, see how it retypes it here in the code. Okay? Then below the last head tag here, I have the beginning and ending body tags, which have nothing in them, and that's why there's nothing over here. If I type something over here, it would show up over here inside the body tag. So far, so good? Good. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. So the first thing I want to do after I open a new page is give it a title. Otherwise, I'll forget. That's how I remember to do that. And then I go to Sites, and I'm going to say New Site. Under New Sites, I'll have this Site Management dialog box pop up. I can give it any name that I want to. It doesn't matter. I'm going to call this Bob. We'll call it Bob 1. We're going to come in here, and then we're going to hit this little folder right here, and we need to find this site on our local computer, okay? Local site folder, which is the one we called Bob, right? So if I go to my desktop, I should find my sites folder. In my sites folder, I should see Bob. I'm going to click on Bob to select it, and then say choose. Then say save. Now, anyway, what I have now is this folder. There's nothing in it yet, so what I want to do is save this untitled document. So File, Save. My home page has to be named index. Index.html or HTML. Okay? That way, on the server where it's going to be out in cyberspace, it will show up as your home page. But don't name it home, call it index. And now I can start working, and Dreamweaver will help me manage all my assets and stuff over here. Okay, so here we go. This is what we're building, so the first thing I want to do is put in this outer container. Everything's a container. Even text is like a box because you can put a background and change the size of it. So I'm going to start with this div container right here, and it's a div container when there's nothing else, footer, header, or anything else to describe it. So I'm going to go over here to this panel called Insert, and I'm going to go right to Structure. It might be uncommon for you, but I'm going to choose Structure, and I'm going to pick the first one here, which is Div. At this point, the div tag, I want to give an ID. This is a selector. There's 4 different kinds of selectors, basically. And in this case, I want to give it an ID that I can recognize. I'm going to call it Container. And that's it. I'm going to say OK. Now look what it's done over here in the code for me. It's written some text inside the container, but it's opened the div tag, it's given it an ID that equals container, and it's closed the div tag. And that's good. Now if I delete this stuff inside, I'm not going to be able to see much of anything. So, and I want to really do that, so I'm going to hit delete. But there's not a lot to see over here. What I want to do then now is give it a CSS style so I can make it show up on the screen a little bit better. Alright, so how I'm going to do that, first of all, I can collapse these menus by double clicking on them, and I want to see the CSS Designer menu show up over here together. Okay, so right down here, if I click on the div tag, I can see I have this tag selector down here, and if I click on Container, it kind of selects that whole container. I want that selected so I can write a rule for that. I'm going to go up here to the top one here, and there's all these different collapsible folders or windows, and I want to do add a source because right now I have no place, or Dreamweaver wants me to tell it where I want to put that code, that the CSS. So I'm going to click here. Let me move this over so we can see it. If I click here, I have choices. I have create a new file, CSS, which would be external, attach an existing external file, or define it in the page. And that's what I'm going to do. Remember when I said it could go up here in the head section, our CSS, and that's where I'm going to put it. Later we'll move it, but right now, define in page. It puts this right here, which is called style, and that's good. Let me open this back up. I do not need media query, so I'm going to close that down, and right now I'm going to say I want a new selector, and if I click here, I should have had this selected, sorry. If I select this and then click here, it should give me that it's # container. That's the ID selector, so that's what I want, and then I just hit return, and then my properties, my magic properties all show up. Everything is in this properties panel that you can do, or practically everything you can do to this object. If I scroll down through it, it's pretty big, so I can also click through it and it brings me to different places. It's not changing windows, it's just finding that place. See how it's moved this down? It's just finding that place in the same window. So in my properties right now, I'm going to deal with the layout. I want to deal with the width. So I'm going to double click here where it says auto, and I'm going to type in 600 pixels. So 600 actually, and I'm just going to hit return. For the height, I'm going to double click again, and I'm going to make that 500 pixels. And then hit return. Okay, see what it's doing over here in the head section? It's writing this style that has to do with the ID container, and it's saying that it's going to be this width and this height. So far so good. And you can't see it yet. Let's give it some color. So I'm going to go over here to background. I'm still on the same container selector, and I'm writing a rule that's going to change now the color of the background. So I'm just going to pick some kind of a gray background color and hit return. Now I can see it. Wonderful. Is this not wonderful? Okay, so next I am going to let me go over to the design view so you can see it. So there it is. There's the whole box sitting at the size that we want it. Go back to split view. And it's written all of this code just to make that container that size and that color. So far so good? Okay. So down here in the body, the construction part of it, inside of this div container, I'm going to click right here and hit return a couple of times. This is where I want to put the next thing. And the next thing is the header. Okay, it's the same as the div container, it has just got a different name. So I'm going to go close that up, go to insert, and I'm going to look for header, which is this one. If I click it, add insertion point, I don't need to give it a class or an ID. Header would be just fine. So it goes right here. There's content for header, and I don't need it, so I'm just going to hit delete. And you can see how it inserts those two tags. Okay, the opening and closing tag for header. Right now I'm just going to style it so that we can see it again, because I can't see it on the page without a style. Okay, so back to the designer, I'm going to pick style. I'm going to make sure that I have that header selected before I click a new selector, and that way it'll type it in. Now this is called a descendant selector. It's saying anywhere you find header inside an ID of container, then apply this rule. That's too much, so I can select that and delete it. I'll show you another way to do that in a minute. Then I'm going to hit return, and I'm going to start adding properties over here. Okay, so for this one, width is going to be 550, so 550, and I'm going to hit enter, and height is going to be 100, and I'm going to hit enter, and we're going to go to color. Actually, let's go to color first. Go to color, and we'll pick, what color was that? Blue. So we're going to pick this lovely blue color right here. Hit return to accept that. And you can see how it's kind of punched up in the side over here. I need some margin around that. Okay. So with that selected again, I'm going to go back to here, and this first one is margin. If I lock this one in the center by clicking the middle, then when I type something here like 25 and hit return, it does all the margin all the way around it. So there you go. So come back in the next movie, we'll put the rest of the pieces together and we'll add some navigation.